So this really is a very special moment for Dalhousie Plastic Surgery, for me, for Atlantic Canada, to have you, Rod, as our visiting professor this year. It's really been a great honor. You've done a wonderful, amazing job today, speaking about all kinds of things: philosophy, rhinoplasty, facelift, doing a cadaver operation, which was outstanding. And now we're going to have a fireside chat, which is the Dalhousie tradition. So in this, there's no skill testing questions. I'm not going to ask you anything embarrassing. But it's really a chance to get to know you a little better, because I thought I knew you until I read your CV. We're good friends. We've known each other a long time. But I've learned a lot of very interesting things about you, and I think that this group would be interested to know more about you and learn some of the things that I've learned. So you've done a lot of amazing things over the years. More than 800 publications, 120 book chapters, more than 20 books or monographs. President of ASPS, president of the Rhinoplasty Society, the academic chairman, selected readings in plastic surgery. But of all those things, probably the journal is the thing that I will remember you the most for, and that probably most of plastic surgery in the world will remember you for. And the journal today is amazing. It's won all kinds of awards. It's moved video into the surgical world where it wasn't before. Today, we read PRS and we flip through and we just see a video of all the operations. And it certainly wasn't like that when you took over. And that's just one of the many things that you've done with the journal. But I think people would be interested to hear what the journal was like when you started. And Bob Goldwyn was the editor, and I'd like to hear some Bob Goldwyn stories and how the journal started. I think a lot of people would love to hear that.
Great. Well, you've been a part of the journal's success. You know, Don, as you know, runs our CME, and he's been amazing in transforming that whole section, MOC section. You know, the journal is just, you know, it's, when I inherited it from Dr. Goldwyn, he said, you know, it's like a baby. You just nourish it and carry it on and try and make it better than you left it. It's kind of like what we want to do in life. You know, you want to leave this earth as better than you left it. You want to leave plastic surgery better. You want to leave, you know, hopefully a world better for our kids. But the journal was interesting. You know, I was the co-editor. I was on the editorial board for about 10 years and co-editor for about 5 or 6 years with Dr. Goldwyn. And Dr. Goldwyn was an amazing guy. He's one of my Harvard professors. And he was a true scholar, and he loved books, he loved the journal. But he said to me, okay, you're going to take over the journal. I don't want, I'm good, I think that's fantastic, but I don't want to turn on a computer. And you know, at that time, the journal was sent out by FedEx or regular mail. It took between 8 and 12 weeks to get a review back. And everything was done by paper. There was a fax machine, a rotary phone, and a DOCS, you know, not a PC, but it was a pre-PC computer in the office, which worked intermittently. And that's basically what I inherited. So one of the most funny but amazing stories was the week or so before I took over, I went up to Boston, and he was going to show me how to lay out an issue of the journal. And it was all done by heart. So I get there, and he opens up these filing cabinets, and there was over 300 articles, which I didn't know he had accepted. There were all in these cabinets, and he put them all on the floor and spread them out on the floor. And he said, this is how I pull them, and I just pull them randomly. You know, I go from the head to the toe. And so he pulled articles that looked like they were good. These were all paper, and this is how he set the journal, under 30 to 40 articles. It was amazing, and I said, oh God, I'm not doing that again.
They were like all over the floor.
All over the floor, and we just picked 30 or 40. And of course, all these other ones that were, some were a year or two old, and it took 2 years to get them published. Now it's under 5 or 6 months. And I said, wow, that's amazing. And so then I had them all hauled to Dallas. Of course, it took me a long time to publish them. But I actually, from day one, I never did anything, but I took it to Inkwell, which is an online system, immediately. And I was told that it would fail, that it would ruin the journal, and also that we would decrease the number of articles that we get. And at that time, we got about 900. Now we get 3,300 articles
A year.
a year. So we more than tripled and quadrupled it actually. And it's only rising 5 to 7% per year, and that's with just the one journal, not the second journal. So it's been, I think a lot of fun because we've transformed the journal and, to what we want it to be. Millennials and today's plastic surgeons, they want to look at it, they want to see it, they want to read it, they want to smell it, they can do it all on the PRS. But, we also took, we tripled the impact factor. It was about 1.3, now it's three times that. And, which is, a small factor of it, but also it's financially done well. But most importantly, it's actually the journal that hopefully we all are very proud to have. But it's a team effort, One thing I learned early in my life from my mother is that, you have to surround yourself with people that are better than you. If you want to be better, you got to have people that are better than you. And that's good advice. So I try and find people that are better than me to help. AKA not a lot.
Well, that's not true.
Thank you for the compliment. It is true.
Because I don't think there is a brighter mind in plastic surgery than yours. I mean, if you consider that right from the beginning, what year did PRS first come out?
1946.
1946. You are the only human that I know who has read every PRS since 1946, because Rod shared this with me. He did that.
Well, I did.
We started in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I learned that I have more in common with Rod than I thought from doing this. We both finished medical school in 1979. And English was neither of our first languages. You spoke German and I spoke French. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you've read every PRS since then, and you're the only person who's done that. I don't think there's another person who could be more read in plastic surgery than you are. So talk to me about how you manage more than 3,000 manuscripts a year. Just how do you do that?
Well, I budget my time. What Don's talking about is when I was a fellow at Oxford, I had some downtime because, I didn't know in the British system, we were done, we would go from 8 till 3, so since I lived at the Radcliffe Infirmary, which was actually where penicillin was discovered by Fleming, and so I had a lot of time, so I just read all the journals from 46 up, and it was fun. But I think it's all about doing what you love to do, and I budget my time every day based upon, what I need to do. And I always focus on the top 3 things that I do. I make a list of that the night before, and those are the things. If I accomplish those 3 things, then I'm good for the day. And I do a bunch of other stuff. But the journal I do either, at 5 or 6 in the morning, and then I'll do 20 or 30 articles, and then at night I'll get another 30 or 40, because we get between 20 and 40 or 50 a day. And with 2 journals, that's new, revised, and others. So, it's just budgeting the time. And I read all the articles and I send them out for a review. But when they come back is when you really have to read everything. So, it's, so you get to know a lot about craniofacial surgery.
Right, so even though you don't do a lot of hand surgery, and you were...
I'm still a hand surgeon though.
I know you are still a hand surgeon. You were on the board of the Hand Association.
Yeah.
You read all the hand papers that come in, and the cleft papers and all that. And so, really, I don't think there's a better read plastic surgeon in the world when it comes to that. But I'm also wanting you to share with people how you manage to do that in terms of this. I know a lot of people who know Rod Rohr, and we all have one thing in common. We email Rod at all times of day from different time zones. And when I occasionally wake up in the night to do some work because I've got a lot of stuff going on and I'm getting behind, which happens from time to time. I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and I get lots of stuff done before 6 o'clock and then start my day, and then I feel a lot better the next day. But when I email Rod at 2 in the morning, bing, it comes back. And everybody I know who knows you has these stories about, does that man ever sleep? So tell these people about your sleep habits, because it's...
Well, I sleep, 4 hours a night. I didn't last night. I didn't get here till 2. But, I think it just depends on what you need. Just, if you get 4 hours, we all learn that from general surgery and plastic surgery residency, and, it's just, plus, I think sleeping is a waste of time. You really need to just, you can sleep later, but I think, you only have so many days on this earth, so you got to use them the way to maximize that. But I don't know. Believe me, if I don't get enough sleep, I know then I'll have to catch up. Like sometimes when I'm jet lagged, I'll get it. But like when I came back from Australia recently. But everybody knows when their optimal time is for performance, and so like I'm a morning person and I'm a late night person. So in the day, I sometimes do cat nap, like 15-20 minutes if I have a lull in the patients. And I have a couch in my office where my staff knows, okay, I'm going to take about 10 minutes. Especially if I had like a couple of crazy patients. But
and I learned this morning that you never set your alarm in the morning.
I never have.
That's amazing. If I did that, I'd be smoked. Most people would be smoked. But it's pretty amazing. It's an amazing thing that you do. So you went to school in North Dakota, South Dakota?
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
I went to North Dakota.
So not unlike Canada.
Very much like Canada.
Yeah, very much like Canada.
Cold, nice for 90 days.
Yeah.
A little cold and overcast.
A few mosquitoes in the summertime.
Yes, big ones.
Yep. And you went to Michigan to do plastic surgery, and then to Boston, Harvard to do part of your
hand
and micro. But you didn't do a full standard fellowship like people do. You split it 3 places. You did part in Mexico, part in England, part in Dallas.
Well,
so
what did I do? Well, what I did is, I did pediatric plastic surgery in Oxford with Mike Poole.
Right.
And then I did, it was kind of like the year. Yeah, and then I went to Mexico to do craniofacial, some more craniofacial with
Ortiz Monasterio.
And then I did maxillofacial in Texas. But, that was just an extra thing to just do, because I wasn't sure. I really wanted to do craniofacial surgery, because when I went to medical school at Baylor, what turned me on to plastic surgery, I went to Baylor because I wanted to be a heart surgeon with Dr. DeBakey.
Right.
Thank God I didn't do that. But I saw this guy named Mel Spira, who's this amazing plastic surgeon. He did a cleft lip, and I happened to be just free that day, and I scrubbed in with him, and that was it.
That was it.
That was it. After that, I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm going to do plastic surgery.
Right.
And Mel Spira was a good friend of Bill Grab. All these guys are, these are the people that... Bill Grab was this famous plastic surgeon who wrote the first Grab and Smith, and so...
From Michigan.
Yeah, and so I went to Ann Arbor, and, I wasn't really going to go back to the cold weather, to be honest with you. And then I liked it, and then I went to Michigan and did that, and then, of course, my 3rd year, Dr. Grab, keels over and dies on me. And so then Dr. Dingman came back, who was probably even more famous, and so he was, one of the original craniofacial surgeons with Converse and those guys, and so he was fantastic. And then I ended up with Dr. Steve Mathis, who was also a phenomenal plastic surgeon, who passed a few years ago.
Right.
So it was just, life is a series of opening and closing doors, you know, because, you know, when obviously when Dr. Dingman or Grab died, you know, I said, God, this is really not good. And, you know, doors open, doors close, you just got to know which door to get open and closed, and that's how life is. And then, you know, I spent some great time in MGH with Jim May, who was a phenomenal teacher,
Right.
hand surgeon.
Right, right. But a lot of the residents, you know, say to me all the time, well, what kind of a fellowship should I have? And they really struggle with this thing. And, you know, I look at what Dr. Rohrich did. He did 3 different things in a year.
You know, I don't think it matters. I think you should do a fellowship. If you're not sure about going into practice, I don't think it matters. I mean, I'm a hand surgeon, I did craniofacial, I did pediatrics. I think it's just great to do extra training. I don't really think it matters. I mean, I didn't know, so I did hand and craniofacial. And honestly, when I came to Dallas, I did craniofacial and pediatrics for almost 10 years with Steve Bird, and I did hand surgery for a lot longer than that in micro. So I think you can't ever be too prepared, because you're not going to go back. You're not going to go back and say, oh, I'm going to go practice a year or two. That ain't going to happen. You're not going to do it. So I don't regret any time at all. You know, I don't regret. I mean, I loved when I was in Boston. I loved when I was in England. I mean, it was great. It made me better. It made me a better plastic surgeon today. You know, and people say I don't do that anymore, but I do. You know, you do. The way you think, the way you do things. I mean, I learned it from all the people that I worked with in craniofacial and in hand surgery, Jim May, and Mike Poole, and all these people. You know, you need to go and be with great people, so you hopefully can be that too someday and give back. So I don't think you can overdo it. Although my mother said to me after I finished my 3rd graduation at medical school, she said, I'm not going to any more graduations until you have a job. So she missed my other graduations because, you know, she's German Russian. I said, I got it. So when I finally had a job, I said, I got a job. So then she was okay.
And there's different styles, you know. I never did a fellowship, but my whole life has been a fellowship. You know, I've gone to visit really good surgeons and watch them work, and hey, you know, like there's different ways to do things. And so, but you've been a fellowship director, and you've been chair of ACGME and all of these things. So why don't you say a word to the residents about what it is that when you're applying for a fellowship, what does a fellowship director want to hear? How do you know you're going to get hired for the job? What kind of things do you want to hear from a resident who wants to be a fellow?
You know, I was a program director of our program for almost over 16 years, and I ran our plastic surgery for over 25, and so I think people want to hear and see and feel passion. You know, I don't really care when I interview somebody. I don't really care that they went to, you know, Duke or Harvard. To me, that doesn't mean anything, because, you know, we've actually had some people. It's not where you're coming from; it's where you're going. That's important. So when I interview somebody, I want to see that they got passion in their eyes and their heart, and that's what I want to see, because I can train anybody if they got that passion. You know, so actually, I like to train people that have the passion. I don't care where they came from; it doesn't matter.
I think that's beautifully articulated, because that's exactly what I think people look for in anybody that they hire, isn't it?
Right, and even in your job, you know, if you saw somebody and he's looking at your shoes, I'm never going to even interview him. I'm going to hire him. So, you know, you got to have it in your heart. You got to have it in your mind before it goes to your hands. And I look at the heart before I look at anything else, because, you know, that's how I pick people for my staff, I pick people for our partners, and for residents. I pick them for their passion. But, you know, because, you know, everybody today has walked on water, has got 10 grants, written 5 articles, gotten 10 awards, you know, that it's hard to sort it out. It's kind of like your website. Everybody's famous on their own website. But who's really, really got the right stuff?
And you can read passion probably in that first 7 minutes that we talk.
I can feel it.
Yeah.
I don't have to, you know, we used to have 20-minute interviews. I can tell in 5 minutes whether they got the passion
Right.
to be a resident or fellow with me.
Right.
I mean, it's not, I mean, you know, I've mellowed a lot, but, you know, it was, you know, we made sure everybody did the deal, you know. We used to have cite articles, and timing, things like that. But I mean, you know, it's because I'm bad at it, doesn't mean that they should, but those were the good old days.
So what was the size of the town that you were born in?
It was about 200 people.
200 people. So you come from...
My class was 12 boys and 12 girls. There were 24 in my class. I was the only one that actually finished a 4-year school. Several others, I think, subsequently did. But, you know, that went on to the university.
And the name of the town?
It was Zeeland. It's an old German.
Zeeland.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was one of the...
Right. So how does a boy who comes from a town of 200 people called Zeeland in North Dakota become the most famous plastic surgeon in the world? In addition to passion, clearly there's passion and there's love for what you do. I mean, you love what you do, and I can feel it. I know it's there. But there's more to it than that. What do you think are the things that have enabled you to recognize opportunities, maybe? You know, Thomas Edison said, many people fail to grasp opportunities because it often comes dressed in overalls and looks like work. You know, clearly you've been able to recognize opportunities in spite of the fact that they didn't seem appealing. But what other, like, how did you do this? How did you do this? What is there about you that drives you to do this?
You know, I think, you know, it's your innate, you know, work ethic. You know, I got it from my parents. You know, it's that German-Russian upbringing. You know, you basically never get anything for nothing. You have to give back. You have to work hard if you're going to succeed. And you always, you know, cherish what you have, not what you're going to have. You give back, and you just always look forward. You know, I think the key is you never look back. You know, the rearview mirror is small, the windshield is big. Never look back. Look to the future and the present. And I think that's what my mother taught me, is that, you know, if you work hard, you will succeed. You know, I think Ben Franklin said that. He said, it's amazing. The harder I work, the better, the more successful I am. You know, I mean, that was pretty astute for Ben Franklin, but I'm sure somebody before him said it. And of course, Winston Churchill was another one of who kept saying, you know, because, you know, he look at him, look at Thomas Edison, look at Abraham Lincoln. He failed 7 times before he became president. So I think you just have to learn from all the things that you can't do to the things you can do. And then things you do well, excel in it.
One of the things that you said today really rang true, and that is that when patients have complications, you have to spend more time with them instead of less time with them. And you have to be very positive when you see patients after surgery all the time. And when Louis Vasconez came as a Dalhousie visiting professor years ago, Louis said, you do an amazing tram flap. The breast looks awesome, everything looks awesome, but you look over and you see a dog ear on the left side and you stare at it and your eyes go, because you see a dog ear on the left-hand side. And the patient thinks, oh my God, he has mutilated me. My friends were right.
Right.
And he said, never whine or, you know, worry about your shortcomings in front of the patient. And that was pretty much what you were saying. But I'd like to hear more about how you handle complications. Because, you know, I think that's something that because psychologically as a surgeon, there's nothing harder than a complication. And there's nothing harder than seeing a result that's less than perfect. So how do we turn this into a positive? Because today, one of the things you said is you have to be able to learn from your mistakes and take that negative.
Right.
So how do you do that psychologically? How do you talk to yourself?
Well, you have to believe in yourself. You have to know that you're true to yourself. And you have to emanate that to your patient. And you know, you got to be, if it's a complication, you know, if it's part of a skin flap loss or something, you have to recognize it, be on top of it, treat it, being very open and honest, and be very positive that, yes, I've seen this before. You can't go in and say, oh, I've never seen it before, you know, and, you know, these are all truisms. You've got to be positive, you got to be helpful, and you got to say, this will be fine. You know, if it's going to, well, of course it will be fine. I've seen this before, we're going to treat it, these are the things we're going to do, and I'm going to see you every other day until it's all healed. It's going to be totally fine. And you have to emanate that positivity because you're going to be going through some dips, especially if the patient has some, you know, emotional issues or something that's, he's thinking that it's not quite where it needs to be. You need to elevate them, and you need to double down on your elevation of being positive. Because you normally have to be positive. Remember I said you have to say at least 5 times at every visit that things are looking good, they're normal, swelling is going, if that's all indeed true. And you have to emanate that because, and if you have a complication, you have to recognize it and also double down on the positivity. And, you know, you'll get through it, but I mean, it affects all of us. You know, you lose a free flap, or, you know, those just, they drain you.
And you have to say to the patient, you have had a complication. And this is not what normally happens, but it happens from time to time, right? Because if you don't tell them it's a complication, they're going to say to their friends, well, this happened to me, and they're all going to say, well, that didn't happen to me.
Right.
So they have to know that they've had a complication.
Of course.
You're going to look after.
These are things that sometimes happen. And you just can't, you can't dismiss it. You just say, these are things that happen, I've seen it before, and you'll be fine. Yeah, so you have to be realistic, you have to be pragmatic, and you have to let them know that it's going to be fine. But, don't let them, be sulking in and out every day. And, it's all part of being a surgeon and being a human. And I tell them, remember, I'm not God. He's helping me, but you're going to be fine. And because we try and sort that out before surgery. No surgery is ever perfect. I've done thousands of those. It happens.
There are surgeons who can't handle complications. One of my predecessors in St. John left surgery and went back to being a sheep farmer because he just couldn't handle it. But we're all
that's
going to
really bad. Sheep farmer.
He did, and we're all going to have them. You learn from them. What you said today was so good. They kill you, but that's because you care and you learn from them.
Right, boy. If you don't care and you don't learn from them, you shouldn't be in plastic surgery. Because I can tell you, every one of my complications in my life has made me a better plastic surgeon. Whether it's a free flap loss, a thumb loss, or a cheek part, that necrosum, a facelift, or a bad result, what I thought was not a good result from rhinoplasty. I learned from that and actually made me better. And so all those things, if they don't, you probably shouldn't be in plastic surgery.
Right.
If you don't learn from them, because that's your life seeing me, you got to learn from them.
You have to be grateful that people have given you the opportunity to sacrifice themselves so that you could get better.
Well, don't tell them that.
Well,
no, but no, I agree. And no matter how good you are, we all live in glass houses. We all see other people's complications all around the world. They see mine, I see theirs all the time. And we just have to be empathetic. Remember I said all those things about, before you criticize, be careful. Before you cut, think.
So on another line, I've had the privilege of watching you at Dallas planning meetings, strategic planning meetings for the journal and Global Open. And the whole inception of literally dozens of very bright creative ideas. And many of them have come from you. Most of them have come from you. But I think a large part of it is you also are very listening. And when people have bright ideas, yeah, let's do this. So we've taken the journal as a group, with you doing most of the work, from a pretty simple, humble beginning to something which is really pretty amazing if you add all of the social media things and resident involvement and all that kind of stuff. And you've been president of the World Surgical
Editors. Yeah.
World Surgical Editors.
Well, it's WAMI, it's the world editors, all the editors in the world.
Right, so all surgical journals of the world have an organization, and Rod's been president of that organization, which you may not know. So you have a pretty good idea of where surgical publications are going more than the rest of us. So tell us what you think is going to happen, where it's going. Where do you think?
Well, it's called WAMI. It's the World, Association of Medical Editors. It's all the editors of all the medical journals.
Well, it's not just surgical.
No, it's everybody.
Medical.
It's everybody. There's several thousand. So, but what it's told me is that we in North America live in a microcosm of closed, non-open access journals, and we need to change. And the way we need to change is we need to go to an open access, meaning open access allowing knowledge to be seen by everybody, everywhere, anytime, free. And I can tell you that's happening right now. That's why I pushed hard to do an open access journal. The PRS Global Open became the first surgical open access journal in all of North America when we did it almost 3.5 years ago. And there's a lot of pushback because people didn't want to do another journal, but really, when you look at it, the White Journal only goes to between 11 to 15,000 people a month, and we all pay a lot for that. It's a fantastic journal. It's the world's best plastic surgery journal. But not everybody can afford to pay, up to $1,000 a year. I mean, they just can't in emerging countries. So we need, like what you do, wide-awake hand surgery. Your stuff in wide-awake hand surgery just can't be seen by 11,000 people. It's now seen by hundreds of thousands of people and therapists because it's in an open access journal. And initially there was a lot of pushback, but as you know, so many things that we've done in the White Journal, now everybody's doing it. All the other plastic surgery journals are doing it. The hand surgery journals are doing it. I was just in Australia and they're doing an open access journal, which is great, So I think where we're headed is that PRS Global Open is going to be huge, and it's going to be bigger than PRS. Now, I'm not saying that in any way to negate the power of PRS, but it's going to be bigger than PRS someday.
And I can see that myself, just even if you do an article on wide-awake cleft lip, lots of plastic surgeons in the world can't afford PRS, but they can get online and see PRS
for free
and see how to do a video of how to inject a cleft lip so it doesn't hurt. So it's very powerful, and personally, I get it. But a lot of North Americans still don't get it because somehow they think it's an inferior quality, which I don't believe. But what would you say to that?
I say to them, listen to what people are reading, and listen to the authors, and listen to what the world wants, and it doesn't revolve just around us. Over 60% of the articles cited today in the world are open access journals. It's a wide-awake wake-up call for us. And, all you have to do is, and of course, because I was I was president of WAMI, I can tell you, closed access journals like all of ours in North America, they don't necessarily like that, and I don't necessarily blame them. But we're used to having, our, closed access journals that have thrived, and that's good. But the world, it's just like how social media has transformed plastic surgery. Open access is transforming the medical publishing in a huge way. It's revolutionary. It's transformational. And the thing is, it's really, really put pressure on the world global editors and the publishers because, you know, you have to have a margin to have a mission. So it's changing that. But it's all going to be good. One door closes, another one opens. All things happen for a reason and for the same, you know, for the same season, you know.
Right. What advice do you have for young plastic surgeons as they look for a job in their first year? So plastic surgery residents. What creates a good job, work environment, happiness? Because you've met hundreds of plastic surgeons, as I have, who've started their career. Lots of them are happy. Some of them not so much. What do you think generates happiness and in choosing a job? Like if you, let's say your son was a plastic surgery resident and you were trying to give him some advice on how do you choose a job?
Well, first of all, we are never responsible for anybody's happiness. You are responsible. I'm responsible for my own happiness or my sadness. So I can't make anybody happy, and I'm not a magician. So that's number one. You know, people innately have to be happy from within. So I think the way you generate your ability to be happy in your life profession is go to where, I always tell my residents and fellows, go to where you want to live, where you want to raise a family, where you want to be in a community where you can give back and grow. Some people want to be a big fish in a small pond. Some people want to be a small fish in a big pond. I can't determine that. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do in academics when I left Boston, you know, and, you know, I did most of that. And, you know, things change, but you have to have a 1 and 2 and 3 year plan. It used to be 1, 5, and 10 year. That's out the door because that's going to change so much. So, first of all, you have to be happy from within, and then just go where you want to live. And where there's a good opportunity. And don't just join somebody, because joining somebody is like getting married. You can't just meet somebody in 10 minutes. You know, you never marry somebody you met in 10 minutes, so, or 2 job interviews. That's always, you know, turns into a bad situation. So if you don't find somebody or know somebody where you're going, go do it yourself. Because finding a place to live and finding a partner is a huge deal. And if you don't know anybody, don't do it. You know, you wouldn't marry somebody you met on the first date in a week. So it's a huge deal. So I say, go to a place where you want to live. Maybe, you know, rent space or do something. Be cost effective. Keep your overhead low. Hire one person that's your girl or guy Friday, and be conservative. Do the right thing. Do good plastic surgery and it'll grow. That formula hasn't changed at all. Except now you have to have at least a website and some social media. You have to do that. I mean, it's you know, when we were coming out, it was bad to have websites. Remember, it was bad. It was not a good thing to have a website. Certainly, if you had a website that showed pre and post op photos with, you know, nudity, you know, with, you know, it was a, you know, you couldn't show a breast reconstruction. I know it sounds crazy, but today it's social media. So do that, but, you know, do it right and get good advice from people you trust, your program directors, your chair, your friends.
Because choosing your partners in some ways is a lot like a marriage, isn't it?
It is. You spend more time with your new partners than you do with your spouse. That first, if you're going to be good at what you do, you're not going to be home. You're going to be in the ERs. You're going to be hanging out with your partner, and if that person's not good or honest and just wants to use you to pay their overhead, don't do it. I can't tell you how many of my residents I've told not to do it, and they did it, and it was a bad situation. And, you know, I get the phone call about 6 months later, you know. Then they did the right thing, but then it cost them several $100,000 in a lawsuit and all those things. So just, if it doesn't feel right, I always tell people, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. You know, because you know what, in any relationship, you know, especially in a partnership, if it's not like fantastic, guess where it's going to go? It's not going to go up, it's going to go down. So if it's not really great and you really know and trust them, don't do it.
Right. And if you do a facelift on Friday and you're out of town and you don't have somebody you can trust who's going to help you, you're smoked. You can never leave.
Right. Well, and then when you know what? When you're starting a practice, whether you're an academic, you know, you got to be at home. You can't, you know. I've been around a while, so first 10 years, nobody knew who I was or what I did. All I did was work 24/7. Never left the hospital. I was at Parkland, literally living there for 5 years. I was on call every night for 10 years. So, you know, that's what you got to do if you really want to make it, and make it well. I mean, it's still back to the whole thing, you know, you got to work hard. There's no magic formula. I mean, I know you can do a lot of social media and be an Instagram star, but you know what? That really ain't going to get you a lot of long-term good things. It really won't. I mean, it won't. You gotta do good plastic surgery, have great results, and your patients will speak for you. That hasn't changed, no matter how much social media you do.
Do you have any other bits of advice for residents on anything? Because we're approaching the end of this.
Well,
you may have some thoughts in your head that I haven't tapped.
I think, you know, go where you want to live, do it with somebody you trust, or don't do it with anybody. Just start cost effective, keep your overhead low, work hard, and follow your passion. If your passion is, you know, doing cleft lips and palates, then follow your passion. You'll eventually, your passion will meet your reality and patience eventually. But be focused, have passion, be focused, and you'll be successful. There'll be lots of doors that'll open and close. And remember, the pathway to success is who finishes the most of the time after so many failures. You know, what did Winston Churchill say? The way to success is when you're in hell, keep walking, keep running. Because look what he did. He literally stimulated a whole nation to win the war with bringing in the U.S. and other allies. So look at people like that. But you're going to have a lot of, you know, it's not a bed of roses. And anybody who says that has never lived the life.
I loved what you said today about life is hard enough when it's going well.
Well, my mother always told me that. You know, life's hard enough when things are going well. And the other thing I tell people is, don't hang out with negative people. They suck the life out of you. You know, whether it's people you know or friends that quote are your friends, and there are 5 people in your life that will determine your destiny, good or bad. You just have to sort out which 5 are good and which 5 are bad. So those 5 people can really, really help you. So I always tell my kids, hang out with kids and people that are as good or better than you. They will elevate you. Those other people will suck the life out of you and even hurt you. So just remember that. And it's also in your patients too. So you try and, you know when you meet a patient that's negative, you know, the door opens and it's such a vacuum. So you need to get out.
Yeah, let's talk about that for just a minute. So the patient who comes in and you get your spidey sense comes up and says, oh man, I just don't want to do this. So what words do you use to say, no, we're not going to do this?
Well, I mean, I'm very honest with them, because sometimes, you know, when somebody sees or has something on their nose that I don't even see, I can't fix it. If I say, I can't see that thing you're talking about, Don, I'm not going to be able to fix it. Or, you know, I just say I'm not good enough to do that, and I'm not God, you know, and you just be honest with them, you know, and I think that's how you have to talk to people, because, and also, if that's not what you're used to doing, if they want you to put a hump on their nose and you're not comfortable doing that, I think somebody else should do that. I mean, I just am not comfortable doing that. I think that's okay to do, you know, because they'll, you know, in the U.S. and in Canada, you know they'll find somebody that will do it. They will. They may be back to see you after that, but they'll find somebody, but, you know, you don't have to be that person. Don't let somebody else's problem become your problem. You know, we're only in this life once, so let's try and do it as good as we can.
It's a line that I've learned from some of my mentors that I use sometimes, is for an operation to happen, two things have to happen. First, you have to be comfortable to have me do the surgery, and I think you are because you're here. But secondly, I have to be comfortable doing your surgery, and that means that I have to have the confidence to know that I can give you the result that you want or deserve, and I don't think I can do that. So I should not operate.
No, I agree, and I tell my patients, I help you decide, if you don't like what I'm telling you, you shouldn't do it, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm not, because it's elective surgery. This is not trauma surgery where it's life and death surgery. This is elective surgery. Everything we do almost in plastic surgery, including the reconstructive surgery, is elective. Most of it is. So you have to have a comfort zone. If you don't do it.
And I think saying no is something that I do not infrequently. I do it a fair amount. And I think it's harder to do, though, if you have a big economic engine that you have to drive in behind you. So another thing that may be of value to caution people about is not buying a monster that you have to feed, that you might not be able to afford in the beginning, right?
Keep your overhead low.
Keep your overhead low.
And if you want to have those big Christmas photos with a bunch of people, hire them to come in and save you on the photo with you. They don't have to be all your employees. I have very few employees in my practice, but they're all people with me 10, 15, 20 years, some 30. I build my practice on the loyalty of my patients and my staff. I don't have a revolving door on my staff. My staff is, I'm loyal to them, they're loyal to me, and I think that's very important. And it is, so is it in life, You really know, who your friends are, and who your friends are not,
Right.
So.
Rod, it's been a great pleasure listening to you this evening and having you entertain and educate us today, and thank you so much.
Well, it's fantastic. I really appreciate it. Great questions, Don. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.